What if the one thing Vladimir Putin feared most wasn't war, wasn't betrayal, but a memory? A name erased from all archives. A photograph with no origin. And a letter, sealed for over 30 years. In tonight's story, we open a door no one dared to knock on, a psychological chamber deep inside the Kremlin where truth wasn't deleted, just buried. Why did the most powerful man in Russia cry over a cassette tape? What did he remember that changed his path forever? And more importantly, who left behind the message that was never supposed to be heard again? This is not just a tale of espionage. It's a forgotten moment that refused to stay hidden. The envelope. It was supposed to be a routine inspection. A quiet day in the Kremlin. The kind of day where nothing monumental ever happened, until it did. Putin had just wrapped up a closed-door economic session with his advisors. The air in the chamber was dense with statistics and projected oil revenues, numbers floating in the silence like ghosts. Then, an aide entered. Pale. Breath clipped. Holding a plain beige envelope, sealed with a red wax emblem that hadn't been used in decades. No one said a word. Putin gestured. The aide placed the envelope on his desk, nodded, and left the room backward, an old protocol used only when the contents of a message were sensitive beyond comprehension. Putin waited. A full minute. Then he broke the seal. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Typewritten. Yellowed slightly. Signed at the bottom in blue ink. There was no salutation. No formal introduction. Just a date at the top, December 12, 1989. And 4 lines of text. They read like a warning. Or maybe a prophecy. He will rise not by fire or sword, but by silence. He will wear control like second skin. But on the day he finds the mirror, he must choose, memory or legacy. Putin read it once. Then again. Then a third time. His face didn't move. But something in his posture shifted. He reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a small iron key, worn, almost smooth. He hadn't touched it in over 20 years. And yet, as his fingers wrapped around it, they moved with muscle memory. Without a word, he stood up, turned to his security team, and said only one sentence. "Clear the route. I'm going to Archive C." Archive C wasn't on any official blueprint. Not even within Kremlin classified maps. It was a holdover from Soviet times, a remnant of an era obsessed with documentation, secrets, and the containment of memory. As he moved through the subterranean levels, the lights flickered, one by one, behind him. No escort. No conversation. Just the echo of his boots, and the envelope in his coat. He reached the vault. Old dials. Cold metal. A panel requiring both fingerprint and retinal scan, outdated, but deeply secure. He entered. The air inside was dry. Like pages had been exhaling history for decades. Rows and rows of files. Shelves filled not just with intelligence, but with emotional time bombs. Records not of actions, but of thoughts. Fears. Doubts. He didn't browse. He knew exactly where to go. Section 7. Compartment 12. He pulled out a drawer. Not thick. Just a few folders. But at the very back, a photograph. Of himself. Younger. In uniform. Standing next to a man with no name. A face that wasn't on any known KGB record. But it was the handwritten note on the back of the photo that froze him. "When you cry, they'll know." Putin sat down. Not on a chair. On the floor. He held the photo in one hand, the envelope in the other. And for the first time in decades, the man who defined control exhaled like someone remembering how to breathe. The man with no records. The photograph trembled in his hand, not because he was shaking, but because the air seemed to pulse around it. The edges were soft with time, but the ink on the back was fresh, as if someone had written it yesterday. Putin turned it over again. His own younger face stared back, eyes sharp, lips tight. The other man stood beside him, older, taller, but somehow less defined. The face blurred just enough to feel intentional, like a memory scrubbed halfway clean. He stared at the eyes. There was something familiar. Something that pulled at a thread he didn't want to follow. He placed the photo down and opened the next folder. Typed pages. Observation notes. Redacted lines and thick black bars. But then, at the bottom of one page, was a name. Handwritten. Not typed. Seraphim. No last name. No title. Just that. Putin froze. That name hadn't crossed his mind in over 30 years. It wasn't in reports. It wasn't in intelligence. It was in his memory. A whisper from his Leningrad training days. Seraphim wasn't a superior. Nor a peer. He was something else, an observer. A man assigned to the potential assets, as the KGB called promising young recruits. Not officially ranked, not officially present. But always there. At corners. At silent tables in empty mess halls. Seraphim didn't train you. He watched you become. And one evening, just once, he spoke. Putin had been 24. Ambitious. Calculated. Already quietly outperforming his unit. But that night, after a cold rain and a routine intelligence exercise, Seraphim had appeared in the locker room doorway, holding a folded slip of paper. He didn't walk in. He just stood there and said, "Vladimir, the world will call you many things. Make sure leader is not the first you believe." And then he was gone. The paper he left behind? Putin never read it. He burned it the same night. Back in Archive C, staring at the name written decades later, he felt a strange heat rise behind his eyes. Not anger. Not fear. Something heavier. He scanned more pages. Then came a report, dated 1990. Unmarked. No official stamp. Written in longhand. The subject has made contact with Seraphim. Unscheduled. Seraphim initiated. Purpose unclear. Emotional resonance detected. Audio not recorded. And below it, scratched hastily. Do not pursue. File for containment. Level 3. Putin closed the folder. His breath was uneven now. The silence in Archive C was so complete, he could hear his pulse in his jaw. He reached into the back of the drawer. There, behind a loose panel, was a thin, metal cassette tape. No label. No code. Just a piece of red string looped through its hole. He held it up. The string smelled like something old, salt, maybe. And the tape felt warm. He took it and stood. No recorders remained in Archive C. He would have to find one. But more than that, he had to know why Seraphim had been watching him even after the fall of the USSR. And more importantly, why there was a file marked Initiated Memory Trigger, 1989. That wasn't a standard KGB term. It was psychological warfare code. Used for one purpose only. To unlock something that had been hidden inside someone's mind, by design. Playback. There was only one place left in the Kremlin that had the equipment he needed. And it was buried. The old psychological analysis wing, sealed for over a decade, still had analog readers, projectors, and cassette players from the Cold War era. Putin had ordered its closure himself in 2004. But he remembered the key code. Some doors, no matter how old, remember who used them last. He moved quickly, the red string cassette tape in his pocket like a hidden pulse. No security detail. No assistant. He walked alone. The hallway to the wing was lined with portraits, not of leaders, but of minds. Pavlov. Luria. even Bekhterev. They watched him silently as he descended deeper, until the walls turned to unpainted concrete. The smell was iron and dust. He entered the lab. Dust covered everything like snow. But the cassette deck sat on the corner of the desk, untouched, a relic waiting for its final use. He inserted the tape, adjusted the headphone jack, and pressed play. There was a click. Static. Then silence. And then a voice. Not his. Not Seraphim's. A woman's voice. Soft. Controlled. She said only one thing. You don't remember me yet. But you chose not to. And soon, you'll have to choose again. Then the tape ended. Putin froze. He hit rewind. Played it again. Same voice. Same words. But something in the tone chilled him. It wasn't a recording of someone reading a message. It was a message meant for him, left with the knowledge that one day, he would need to hear it. He sat in the chair. Eyes closed. For the first time in years, he let a memory surface he had long refused to acknowledge. It was 1989. Berlin had just begun to fall. The world was unraveling at the seams, and in Dresden, Putin was stationed as a junior KGB liaison. That night, the station came under threat. Angry protesters. A mob forming outside. He had been ordered to burn sensitive files. Standard protocol. But in the chaos, someone entered the station. A woman. Not older than him. Civilian clothes. No badge. She walked directly up to him and handed him a sealed envelope. Then she whispered something in his ear. Something that made him stop burning the papers. She looked him in the eye and said, "You're not meant to erase history. You're meant to carry it." Then she left. The rest of that night, he burned the remaining files. Except one. That envelope. He never opened it. He locked it away in his personal trunk and shipped it back to Moscow. And never spoke of it again. Now, decades later, that same voice had returned. On a cassette tape with no label. In a room that hadn't been touched since 2004. Putin stood. He went back to Archive C, found the trunk. It had no markings. Just a Soviet-issued clasp. Inside were photos, a training badge, and beneath it all, a beige envelope. Still sealed. Still untouched. He sat again. Hands steady. And opened it. The letter. The paper inside the envelope was fragile. Yellowed at the corners. Folded once, carefully, with the precision of someone who knew it would be untouched for years. Putin unfolded it slowly, as if it might disintegrate in his hands. But it didn't. It was handwritten. Blue ink. Tight cursive. No greeting. No date. No name. Just a message. If you are reading this, it means the world you knew is either gone or slipping away. You were always meant to forget me. It was safer for both of us. But memory has a weight. And one day, even you would feel it. Putin blinked. The words felt familiar. Like they had been spoken once in a dream. He read on. In Dresden, I gave you a choice. Not about loyalty. Not about ideology. About truth. You chose silence. And I disappeared. But the truth you buried has been moving beneath your feet ever since. He leaned back. The room felt colder now. He read the next part. You rose because of your discipline. Your control. Your ability to erase the noise. But what if the noise was the only thing real? A strange pressure built behind his eyes. The kind that comes not from grief, but recognition. The kind that says, you knew this all along. He continued. We were more than an encounter. You remember my face, even if you won't say it. I remember yours. And I watched your ascent from the shadows, until I couldn't anymore. Putin closed his eyes. The image came fast, uninvited, her standing in the doorway of the Dresden station, eyes wet from rain, voice calm. No fear. Just intent. He opened his eyes. The letter's final paragraph was shorter. This isn't a warning. It's an invitation. To remember what the system made you forget. The night you cried, they told you to bury it. But I didn't. I kept it. And now, it's yours again. No signature. Just a symbol, drawn in black ink at the bottom corner. A mirror. Cracked. He sat motionless. The silence in the room stretched wide, as if the walls themselves were waiting for his next move. Then, he did something he hadn't done since he was a boy. He cried. Not loudly. Not with sobs. But with the kind of tears that come from the marrow. The kind that don't ask permission. He folded the letter. Held it to his chest. And stayed seated for almost an hour. No one called. No one entered. Because no one knew where he was. The return. That night, the Kremlin slept. But Vladimir Putin did not. He stood at the edge of his private residence's west-facing window, lights off, staring at Moscow's skyline, a silhouette of ambition carved against the night sky. He still held the letter. Not like a threat. Like a compass. And something in him had shifted. Not broken. Not reassembled. Just altered. For decades, he had been the architect of shadows. The man who moved pieces on a global chessboard, unreadable, untouchable. But tonight, memory had made a countermove. And he was out of prepared lines. He returned to the archive room, but this time, not to dig deeper. To return something. He placed the letter back in the envelope. Then inserted it into the cassette case, wrapped the red string once more, and slid it back into its hidden compartment behind the file drawer in Archive C. No labels. No log. Just as it had come. Then he took the photograph, the one with Seraphim, and lit a single match. He didn't hesitate. The photo curled and darkened in his palm. As it burned, he whispered something no one else heard. We never really forget. We just store it, differently. Ash drifted to the concrete floor. He exhaled. Not the breath of a tired man, but of someone who had finally released a truth too long held in cold storage. 2 days later, a report reached him. Unmarked envelope. No sender. Inside, a photo. A child. 5, maybe 6. With eyes that matched his. No note. No claim. Just a timestamp in the corner, April 1990. He stared at it for a full minute before placing it face down in a drawer. That drawer remained locked. To this day, no one knows what else is in it. In the months that followed, subtle changes appeared. A foreign ambassador once described Putin's demeanor as uncharacteristically quiet, almost reflective. An aide was dismissed for asking where Archive C was. And one night, during a private dinner in Sochi, he was overheard saying to a retired general, "Control is a myth. We only borrow it from time." The general didn't respond. He wouldn't dare. But the meaning lingered. Years later, when asked in a confidential interview what Putin feared most, an intelligence defector gave a surprising answer. Not NATO. Not coups. Not internal betrayal. He said, simply, a memory. And maybe, that was the whole point. Some men lead through power. Others through vision. But the most dangerous are those who lead to forget, and then remember. Putin never spoke of the envelope again. But he kept it. Because some secrets are not meant to be shared. Only carried. Some stories aren't about what happened, but about what was almost forgotten. And maybe, the strongest men aren't the ones who never cry. but the ones who remember why they once did. If this chapter made you feel something, if it made you think twice about the silence behind power, hit that like button, leave us your thoughts below. And don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories from the shadows of history. Because here, at Hidden Chapters, we don't rewrite history. We reveal the parts no one talks about.